Welcome to the second season of the Absolutely Right podcast. I'm your host Aditi Surana. I am a graphologist and a high performance coach. This show is designed to understand people, their mindset, understand your own personality with the help of a very interesting tool which is kind of lost in the whole technology development called graphology. It is a study of graph that is created underneath your handwriting. Now, whether you write or you do not, whether you're always on the phone, it doesn't matter. Your handwriting talks about your personality because you and I have spent minimum 15 years of our life using handwriting as a way of expressing, right, making notes, doing all our school and college assignments. So, there is a connection between your body and your mind which takes over, and graphology gives away great deal of information when you write something or pretty much anything on the paper. Much before I started my career, I always felt fascinated by this simple thought about why people behave in the way they do. And the quest of finding all the answers led me to this profession. So, on the show, we do exactly that same thing. We invite people from different walks of life and then figure out why do they do the things they do. Today, our guest on the show is Ronitaa Italia, who is a veteran when it comes to design and content related to that with 22 years of experience. Ronita currently helms India's two premium architecture, design, and decor magazines, Good Homes and Home and Design Trends. To my surprise, Ronita was really open about some important areas that she is dealing with currently. We spoke about her current state of mind, what she is pondering about, what are her stressors, her triggers, and how she makes her decisions. Interestingly, she always thought she's an introvert as well as an extrovert. She wanted graphology to confirm which way her handwriting goes. Now, I have spoken about all these factors which might be applicable to your own handwriting. So, make sure that you keep your handwritten note handy so that you can look at your own sample while I describe her traits in her writing. You might be aware of this, but we already have all Absolutely Right podcast episode on our YouTube channel Aditi Surana. So go ahead and check out the handwriting strokes in the video for you to know which stroke is really applicable to your writing. Without further ado, let me invite Ronita to join us so that we can dive into the conversation based on handwriting and let's see what we have here to discover. Hi, Ronita. Welcome to Absolutely Right. And I'm so excited to have you here, especially because of all the things that I learned about you online and the career and the space that you chose to be in when you started. It was so tough. So, what got you on this journey?
Uh, Aditi, first of all, thank you for having me. It's really, really exciting. Um, so I've always wanted to do what I'm doing right now. I was very,
Okay.
very clear that, this is something that I always wanted to do.
Hmm.
I wanted to study English. I did. I wanted to write for a living. Of course, went
Okay.
dead against the grain back in the day. My parents just didn't understand how that would sort of put food on the table for me, but it
Right.
worked. Uh, and of course, I always wanted to be an editor. So when I started
Hmm.
writing for a living, I knew that that's where I wanted to go. And, um, as they say, the universe conspires. It's
So
as
cool.
clear as that.
How interesting. And I must say, when I look at your handwriting, the first thing that stands out for me is your consistent need to be on the path that you have chosen. So many times when things become difficult and they do not show up the way you thought or you expected, even other people expected them to be, you stand there and you take a score and you go for it. You do not stop. And that resilience is a signature move, if I have to say one thing about you to begin.
Really, really, does it
Yes.
show?
Ye- Yes, it does.
When you sort of go through life as a journey, there are things that you get to know about yourself because you realize that you are your only constant companion. You know,
Well said.
uh, yeah, and there are things that I would point out about myself today, and I'd be able to say it with a lot of conviction. And yes, that is one of the things that I would say about myself, that I would never have thought that. I would never have thought
Okay.
that. I'm one of those people who is very easy to sort of change along the way, and I'm very proud of the fact that I'm not. I believe I'm not stubborn.
Mhm.
Uh,
And I,
but
I second that.
oh yeah, see, it's amazing. But I would never have thought that, I would never have thought that I was a go-getter. I would have never thought that, I would have been so consistently perseverant of my goals, so to speak.
Mm,
Okay,
right.
but yeah, I'm not in not a very ambitious sort of way. But yes, I kind of know that okay, this is something that I'd like to do, and then I like to pursue it. But the journey just does tend to sort of meander and change, and I like to have fun along the
Yes.
way.
Are you easygoing? Yes. Are you really someone who would jump into things which are new, exciting, and unconventional? Yes. Would you play by the ear for situations? Yes. So, all of this is yes. But at a larger level, when you look at something and your overall journey, you won't give up on your priorities, which is very interesting because most people don't understand that aspect of you because of your excitement to try something new. Now, people who have been your friends over these years and people who are family have known this about you, that no matter how easygoing you appear to be to other people, when it comes to your priorities, you do not compromise and you stick to it. You're not stubborn, but yes, you're very firm when it comes to your decisions.
Yes. So I take my decisions very quickly. Like I know that okay, this is it. I'm good with this. And if I don't like something, then also it's equally quick and equally firm. But having said that, if you try to convince me, I will get convinced. It's not something that I say
No,
difficult.
Ranita, you won't. You will get convinced only if the person brings in enough logic to the table. You won't get convinced easily. Let me call all the people in your team right away.
No, 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 don't do that. But yeah, okay, okay, I'll concede.
So I just want to bring in our listeners here. So when you write your letter M and very pointed, if you look at your own handwriting, there are like these points formed at the top of all these letters. They talk about how quick somebody is in engaging with any situation, and instead of wasting time to gather data, you use your observation, your insight, and overall experiences of life to bring the quick decision making process. But it never happens that quickly internally because you internalize every experience so much. In the moment when you're thrown into the situation, it appears to be quick. It's like it's how you process things. Second aspect of your behavior, which I feel is very interesting, is I believe your handwriting moves to the left. It is not straight. So we have something called slant in the writing. If it is left, these people are mostly introverts, right? But your signature talks about it's a larger signature. So compared to normal size of the writing, is a large writing in the signature, which talks about public image, actually reaching out, having a larger persona, connecting with many people, and that is like definitely a contradictory behavior that you must have observed also.
Oh yes, oh yes. So I am a closet introvert,
Uh-huh.
guilty as charged completely. But I also think that it comes from there's a very stark, and this is something that I'm very conscious about. It comes from the upbringing. My
Okay.
mother was always a very, very I don't want to go out kind of person. And for me, it comes from there because she has been someone that I've looked up to for the longest time, and so I do enjoy spending time by myself with my sister,
Mhm.
reading, doing my thing in my own sort of private space, and yet I'm a completely different person with my friends. That these
Mhm.
are people that I have to be very, very familiar with.
Right.
Yeah,
So also socially, when people meet you in a formal setting, there also people take time to believe that you are an introvert. Like very rarely people would even notice that. You'll become like,
yeah,
you turn into this person who
yeah, yeah,
becomes the life in a party and you get everybody
oh, yeah.
connected with one another. So
Completely,
so people don't
completely.
expect introverts to behave like that. So yes, that is a part to it. And I'm very happy that you already are aware of it.
Practice, practice, practice.
So we did this episode initially, like I think episode number 6 or 8, which was about survival guide for introverts, because mostly people don't know how to survive in the
Yeah.
social situations that we are in, where only extroverts are celebrated. So I think you have
No,
figured your way to survive here.
but the angst and the anxiety is very real. Is very
Right.
real. Um, Public speaking, meeting people, events, social gatherings. It's you have to psych yourself. You need that. You have to take that moment and tell yourself, okay, Ronita, deep breathe. So it does take that. Even today, it does take that.
So it's interesting that you say that. So you're not saying that you managed to be this successful because you already had these traits, but in spite of your introversion, you chose to stick at the process to create whatever you have created. That's even more incredible. That's so inspiring.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about whether this the introvert aspect of mine shows. You've addressed it. Um, so yes, there's one thing that I really want to check with you on is can you tell from the way a person writes their uh, pluses and their shortcomings? Does that
Yes.
show? So have
Yes,
you got me down
completely.
to the T?
Yes. So the first thing, if I have to say about your strength, is when you lead a team, when you lead some people, when you get to a project, you make it yours, you own it completely. It cannot be something that you're distant from, something that you would do, on the side. You don't understand these side gigs. You're either there 100% or zero. And that intensity, though it is looked at as obsession, I feel is your strength in any project that you have picked up so far. So that is first thing. Second thing is, when you look at your own self in the situation where you're uncomfortable, you actually fall back, you get into the self doubt mode, you kind of become self critical. And for some reason, with practice or with your mechanism, you pull yourself up to stand there and deal with the situation. So those 3 steps backwards and then 2 steps forward is where the journey goes. So people do not see the inner work that goes underneath that, but you do fall into the trap, which, doubts, challenges, whatever people have gifted you with all these years, over these years, you pick that up, deal with it. But there is a mechanism. Now I'm going to talk about the weaknesses where that becomes a problem, but definitely that fine tuning consciously with awareness is what you have been working on, which I feel is incredible because very few people can do that.
Yay. Okay, shortcomings. I'm waiting to know the
Okay.
shortcomings.
First thing is, I think now it is changing slowly, but for the longest time, you looked at the situation, and while trying to deal with your doubts and walking yourself out of it, you also denied the reality, what we call self deceit. So the whole aspect of walking yourself out of the situation and pepping that whole journey through also comes with not accepting, not looking at things for what they are. And this is where you withdraw, you wear the blinders, you walk through the situation, and you tell yourself that, oh my god, I cannot look at it because it will hurt me a lot more than I can imagine I can bear. And that is an aspect of self deceit. So I feel that same thing which works as a strength has a connotation. For our
Aditi.
listeners, Ronita is hiding herself right now.
No, so I have to say this again. This comes to me from my mother. It's a behavioral pattern, escapism. She
Hmm.
doesn't want to deal with an issue that's bothering her, or that's really big, or that's really ugly. And again, believe me, I have to. I've only gotten conscious of it over the last few years. Okay,
Hmm.
um, and there are still
But
things that I want to run away from.
yeah, and the whole idea comes as from the fact that if I run away, if I hide, I duck down, it will go away, which it doesn't. And this is where the biggest challenge is.
I've learned the hard way,
Hmm.
extremely hard way, especially in the last few years, and not so much in my professional life, because you're sort of you've trained yourself to be a perfectionist in on
So
the
many
professional
ways.
front.
Yeah.
But in my personal life, oh my God, yes. There's a lot of things that you sort of avoid because you don't want to look at it. The
Mm.
underbelly of relationships that
Yeah.
you'd rather believe what the person's saying than question the ugly truth.
Because seeing the ugly truth is not comfortable.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So
So
that's something that I've only learned.
sorry to interrupt you, but unfortunately, if it has worked for your mom in her lifetime, it won't help you and it won't work for you because the other aspect of your personality is intuition. You're highly observant and you read between the lines and you see things for what they are at one level, but consciously you don't want to accept it. So the gap between what is happening or what you can see and what is the truth is very, very clear for you. For some people it is not even clear. They kind of believe in the rosy picture, and they genuinely believe in it. You cannot, because you see the truth or at least the glimpse of it, and then you have to look at the other side and fight it and deal with it and push yourself, and that doesn't help.
I'm learning that now.
Mm.
The hard way, but I'm learning. I'm learning to face everything that sort of comes up.
So I was reading through your profile and the whole TV show and bringing interior work to that media. What were your challenges while doing that? It's a unique concept, definitely in India. So how did you deal with it?
Head on, absolutely head on. There were no two ways about it. It's something that, as a team, I was very, very, very clear that my team needed to experience this.
Okay.
We needed to open this media up to the team because I did the Good Homes show when, print was sort of on the verge of letting, giving in to digital,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So once the idea was out there, then there was no stopping me or the team because then
Mm-hmm.
we were just like, this way or that, it has to be done.
Right.
And so whether it was going out there and actually pitching to the brands, executing it, trying to figure out production, all of that, we there, we put our fingers in all those pies, and it was incredible. It was incredible learning.
I want to bring this experience and this example, and because you had that amount of clarity, the doubts didn't take over. You did not beat yourself up. You did not look at things and pondered beyond, and you were not worrying about it. But when you do not have clarity, or if you're trying to convince yourself otherwise, so you have complete clarity, but you don't want to walk on that clarity and you want to convince yourself otherwise, is where you feel pulled in different directions.
Yes, Aditi. Oh my God, yes. And there are times when you tend to, it's human, you tend to give into that, right? You tend to give into the worry.
I can't say it's human because so many ideas of so called human are our practiced behaviors. So, the very moment you start practicing different behavior, it won't remain as human as it appears right now.
Guilty as charged again. Yes.
Over to you.
No, I mean, so I don't know what to say. I'm just so speechless right now because yes, there are times when there's no clarity. I also just want to put things down and say, no, I'm not going down that road because I'm not clear.
Right.
Until I'm so again, this has come to me over the years. I would have earlier just like gone through with something and not really known where I'm going, but still gone through anyway and figured my way out. I've reached a point now where also the stakes are a lot higher. There are so many people looking after you, so you don't want to. You're not alone experimenting.
Right.
You're carrying that responsibility. You've also taken on the commitment of leading so many people on, so you want to be sure, at least if not of the entire journey, some part of it, because then you kind of do your research along the way, right? um, so I've now reached a point where if there's no clarity, I'm not moving forward.
I think that's
I mean,
amazing. It takes a lot of courage to do that, but it's amazing that you have chosen that path. Finally, if I may say, I do not know you otherwise, but finally.
yes, Finally,
Yes,
finally. Oh, so I have a question for you, if I may.
yes, please.
Okay,
Yes,
this is
please.
something that I have always sort of wondered about myself.
Mm.
That uh, I've always been so clear that this is what I want to do and this is where I want to be. And I've now reached the point where I ask myself, what next, right? So if you had to recommend a, like an alternative or a plan B profession, what would you sort of
So before I
nudge
go
me?
and tell you this, I have to refer to my training in Carl Jung's model of behavioral analysis called MBTI, which is also known as Meyer-Briggs Type Indicator. Now, they talk about this. They say after 35, you go exactly against what you have known as true about yourself. And it's just so beautiful that in those gaps you can literally find how some traits turn against you, turns exactly opposite of what you believed as your version of reality or life. So in your case, I feel you love studying people, you observe them very closely, and if I may say this, they're like specimens for you. So when you see different types of people, you kind of put them into different boxes, but also you keep evaluating and keep observing minute details. So any profession like mine that demands to look at people, look at the deeper aspects of their personality would do very, very good for you.
But listen, what do I do about the lack of patience? It's just no
that
patience.
that like other things you can learn about, if I may say. Now where we talk about this lack of patience is in your handwriting. There's a letter, beautiful letter T, which talks about many many aspects of your personality, but one of them is temper and impatience. When the horizontal line on the T flies off ahead of yourself, ahead of itself, it is about impatience, which is ample in every possible stroke that we can find in your writing. Now that impatience is about wanting to reach where you have decided to reach. Now the other practice to that is observing, uh, being in the moment, like literally making the most of it. But I must say that is coming to you slowly, steadily. You are getting calmer, you're getting less hyper for sure. The overthinking mind, when it gets a little bit more trained, then things will become simpler for sure.
So how does one do this training? How do you train the mind to stop? Of course, mindfulness. Yes, that's something again that we now the whole world is waking up to being mindful about so many things, right?
Other aspect of it is being intensely involved in activities. Anything that you pick up, when you become intensely involved, when you tune yourself to be intensely involved, anything that you pick up can turn into a feedback mechanism. There's a book by this amazing author called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called Flow, and he talks about this whole idea that you walk into something and you get absorbed in that experience, and that allows you to get activated in ways that you have never experienced before, because that one activity challenges you at certain level and also relaxes you at certain level. Now when you see the both aspects of that activity, challenging and relaxing, is where you start enjoying it. Now in your case, you do not make those choices based on how intensely involved you are. A part of you is constantly pushing you that I have to do it, I have to do it, I have to do it. Now when that part, that controlling part of you takes over, then the game is very very different. Then you are not pausing, then you're not really evaluating the situation. But now that part is becoming weaker as you're growing up, if I may say.
You're allowed to say all of that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I want to say, I didn't want to say growing old, so I'm like, oh,
no, no,
growing up.
it's a reality that one comes to terms with. You're allowed to go ahead. But also the kind of lives we lead, deadline based. There's something you're always chasing a deadline, so you tend to get impatient with
So
things
you
that
tend
don't
to get
come into.
impatient because if you start responding to it as if you have to do it even internally. So when you start picking up intensely involved as an approach, and let me explain this a bit more. Now, a part of our work is in graphotherapy, and where I speak about one particular stroke that looks like S formation. And on my Instagram page and YouTube, we have many videos made for this one particular stroke. Because if you practice it with breath coordinated movement, as I call it, your mind and body starts relaxing. And then you walk into the same situation and you're active, you're really dealing with all the deadlines required, but these deadlines are not getting to you. Let's take an example. If you are learning driving, if you're a new driver, all these things look so intimidating, like the gearbox. Oh my god, I have to look at the road, I have to keep
The
all these
coordination.
things in mind. And like most people, once you get a hang of the skill, then the same pressurizing situation, you can talk on the phone, eat. As women, we wear makeup while driving, we can do anything while the act of maneuvering through so many things. So it's not about the external pressure. So the deadlines and all the external things that are pushing us, yes, of course they are. But the other aspect of it is definitely how much can you be in control of the situation, especially internally. And that is a game changer, according to me. So when you have a mechanism, how we have bodies which are pulled and tensed and stretched in wrong ways whole day, and then you go for, say, a yoga class, and suddenly your body feel more aligned. So that everyday alignment allows you to go crazy through the day, and you come back and do the alignment. Now, how many times we do the same thing for our minds?
True that.
So that is, I think, is essential that we start looking at our mental well-being from a space of, in a way, maintaining them or recharging them instead of just fixing the problems. Because nowadays, if we have a problem, then we go to a therapist and look at things that would eventually get fixed. But it's not about being fixed, it is about literally building capacity. And that's why I think I personally like the high performance mindset, because you constantly keep building the whole idea of that, how can I question myself,
Yeah,
how can I
go.
take myself to the next level without any need to do so. And that I feel is super exciting.
So that's learned behavior.
It's so most of our behaviors are learned, right? Like nature will give us something and then you constantly nurture it. Even what is natural to you is practiced over these years, and that's why it feels natural eventually. So even nature, whatever is their nature, is also further nurtured for you to behave in a particular manner. So we cannot take away from our practice of choosing one behavior over and over again to turn into the people that we are.
So tell me, can one change that? Can one unlearn just as easily?
Not everything, but many things. Not everything, because some behaviors go all the way back to who we used to be, and our stories and how we are shaped in that manner. So I also feel we shouldn't change everything. There are a few things, and my approach to it is working with mind blocks. So I believe you don't have to teach water how to flow, fire how to burn, so you don't have to teach all of that. So if you know you're already a fire, which is that identification process through your analysis, and then you kind of intensify it. And people are like, but if burn more, other people will get uncomfortable. My approach is, so be it, because eventually they'll get on with the program, and then they will understand that, oh, you are that fire with that flame in you, and you can ignite the whole thing. But if you control yourself, constantly evaluate every move, then people will never ever see the other side,
Get to
and
that.
they will never see how powerful you can become, because you constantly kept adjusting to other people's fears, their limitations, not even their expectations, just how they looked at the world and what they spoke about it. You
Yeah.
kept buying into those ideas, and all of us keep living in that bubble, believing that everything going to be okay, until we reach that, yeah, it's not okay. Actually, I tried everything, but I still feel worked up. I still feel my body is like tensed. Now bodies are honest. People come up with stories to camouflage situations, but bodies give away the information, right? And that's why you cannot lie when it comes to your health and how you feel in your physical experience.
True that. So, can you spot these mind blocks in
One
people's
of the
writing?
biggest one that I picked up was the escapism that we already spoke about. Second one, when I look at your execution style, you become really stuck up about certain things. And when I say stuck up, it's also that compulsive behavior that I cannot let it go. And that builds a lot of tension. between you, people, and also physically for you when you constantly hold on to things which you can little let go of to figure out what you want to do. But you have identified with it. You have There is a brand of Ronita style of doing things. So when you have that style, when you have that brand, you want to live up to that idea is what you work towards. And that becomes a challenge. That becomes a challenge internally, because yes, you're very quick to move and change things until you get stuck up about that one little detail, that one little aspect of the design.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. There's a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. It's all about how amazing leaders have been amazing managers, where they took over the operations and they did everything in detail. But when they moved to the strategic role, they had to kind of loosen up and say, okay, probably I'm not executing as someone else is, and it's okay for me to not pay attention to certain things. And that's the toughest part.
It is in every sense, especially when it comes to the kids
Hmm,
at home,
I can imagine.
because there's so many roles that you play, and again, that is. But yeah, I mean, I can't be talking to you about all of that. You're almost becoming my counselor right now. This is just like an incredible session on balancing uh, roles and just the
But
general.
that is the idea. I'm so happy and I'm so surprised that you're being so open to this conversation, because that was my idea when we started the show. We wanted amazing people to come on the show and do a live session. And then whatever happens, I feel when we open our hearts, something magical happens all the time. So our listeners connect to the fact that you're being so open and willing to look at those areas which otherwise people are unwilling. They pretend that they don't have at all. So all that is not happening. I'm so happy and surprised.
So I was telling you about this huge change that I find within me. Okay, in the last couple of years,
Mm.
specifically, especially in the last couple of years, I seem to have sort of woken up to a side of me that I didn't know existed. You know, and which is a lot calmer,
Mm.
which is diametrically opposite to this impatient, hyper sort of activity oriented person,
Mm.
And again, I wanted to know if you can spot that, if you can spot the dichotomy.
So I let me describe the dichotomy. Will that help? Like what has shifted after this
Yes, that would
so-called,
be
yeah?
so cool.
So I feel this whole journey started with a risk that you took, like something which was larger, and you wanted to walk through this. And after it was done, you sat there, thought through the journey, and say, why did I choose it? Or what was the reason? What was my reason? And that was the turning point. Now, whenever that happened, probably, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, but that was a period between 3 to 5 years. As you started evaluating that one idea, you started evaluating almost everything in your life. So this is where the rebooting began. Now, after the reboot, on the other side, are you more patient? I can't say patient, but yes, you're more evaluative. You do not lose your temper as much. But when you lose it, of course, you go back to your same behavior and mechanism, but the frequency has reduced for sure. You are more articulate about exactly what you feel and how you're going through the experience, without making people feel guilty about it, which is a big deal. Like, otherwise it was about, how could you behave like that, why did you do these things? And now it has turned into, okay, this is how I felt and I would like to feel differently about the same thing, which I feel is amazing, because very few people can reach that point. The evaluation also has led you to look at different comparisons between what is happening and what could happen in the future if you take charge. So that, taking control. Last part is you are beginning to be okay with so many flaws around. And I'm saying just beginning. I can't say that journey is
No,
complete.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But you're
yeah.
beginning to be
So
okay with it. It doesn't get to your nerves. It doesn't get you riled up. You're like, okay, I think I can live with it. but it should be. So next time we'll do something else, or you try to solve the problem, but you don't get worked up about it.
You're right. 10 on 10.
Thank you.
All correct.
On that you must say absolutely right. That's the name of our show.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Aditi. Oh. Oh yeah, I kind of know what you're saying. I know that it started. I know it's not like I haven't reached where I want to reach, which is like the sea of calm and a really pretty island in the middle.
Sorry, but that's not happening ever. You are the queen and princess of a rough weather, so you will always create things which will keep you excited. So that calmness completely is not happening, and that idea should not be pursued, I feel. But as I always love to say, that you can keep adding a spoonful of calmness in every day while doing whatever you're doing, because that activity and challenge, as I said in the flow concept, is essential, is crucial, that keeps you going. Now, if you look at your career, every year you have figured out ways in which you challenged yourself, and then people followed. And then you said, I think I got here and I'm getting bored. Let me pick up something else that we haven't done before. Now, that is your impatience working at your benefit. And I think that's amazing, because that brings out the parts of you that you have never ever discovered before.
How does one balance these? So the other, and this is again something that is pretty obvious about me, but I want to know if it's showing in my writing. Okay, the
Okay.
fact that there are multiple personalities, and I know that there is one part of me that's very, very different from like another slightly smaller part. Does it show?
I think you're multi passionate. I don't think there are multiple personalities. For example, if you pick up cooking, or if you pick up, reading poetry, for both these things, you'll be equally passionate. And people are like, please decide. Are you this? Are you that? And you're like, I can't decide.
Yeah,
I love both these things
yeah,
equally, and I can like indulge into them to the fullest, as much as somebody who has spent 20 years doing that one thing forever. Right. So that is your skill. So being a multi-passionate person, one thing is for sure, you'll always be misunderstood and you'll always be reprimanded for not being focused. But that's not true.
absolutely right. See, I remember. Yeah, okay. You,
With that question, I'm going to walk into our next segment, which is called Autograph Please. I'm going to look at your signature and tell you how people misunderstand you. The specific, this whole idea, right? Your signature gives you a public image, how people look at you, and your handwriting talks about who you are. The gap between the two talks about all the misunderstandings that you have pretty much spent your entire life covering up for, or like saying sorry for, or you know losing friends on. So that is
bring
the
it
area.
on.
So people for some reason believe that you can be intimidating in your role. Now you're like, but I'm a friendly person. If you talk to me, I'll figure this out. But they take good 1 or 2 months to really feel that comfort and that connection with you before they can really open up. And that intimidation is something that is your signature's first and foremost idea that stands out for me. Second thing you get misunderstood on a lot is people feel that you are an emotional person. They feel that if they give you stories about how these shiny objects will solve your problem, they believe you'll buy it, and you don't. And they wonder, why are you not buying? So they try to go more emotional about it. And sometimes people in your office or in your professional or even personal space would have given you more emotional stories to convince you, believing that is how you think, and you buy the larger concept. But you don't. You are more logical, you're very quick. So more time they spend, more they lose your attention, which they have no clue about. And she's hiding her face again. That is from my side, Ronita. If you have any other question, go ahead.
No, you you filled in all the blanks. As you can see,
List.
my journalist list of questions is, oh, the last question, yeah. Advice for me?
I think we had many, many of them already. But one thing for sure is do get into a habit of journaling because you are your best critique. I don't have to say that one more time. But at the same time, there are patterns which you are right now detecting and you're willing to break. This is a perfect time for you to evaluate that process in a non personal manner over and over again. So get into a habit of journaling as your everyday habit. And, I talk to people about asking a question and journaling around it. Please pick up that, like, ask a question that what I could have changed here or what are my trigger points here and evaluate the situation with those questions in mind. The very moment you start doing it, you will observe the pattern which is repeating over and over again. Now, today, what you spoke about, multiple things as your change or shift, is where you pick those patterns and you said, okay, I don't want these patterns to control me. And you did something different about it. And that's what we want to cultivate in so many other areas, especially in patience.
Yes,
Yeah. So if you
God.
work on that one area of impatience, you'll become a different person altogether because you know that how your mind pushes you to rush into things which are not really, urgent. You don't have to do it, but that has become a compulsive, I would say, habit for you to do it. So that's one definitely an important advice from my side.
I'm reaching out and giving you a hug right now.
Aw.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you. I'm so
I
happy.
know.
The whole conversation just kept flowing and we just kind of just kept playing along. It's like
Yeah,
dancing along.
I have to say this that it was just really nice to, for a change, sit and actually absorb everything that you're saying. Like, very
Thank
few
you.
times that actually happens with
Thank you.
me.
No, no,
Loved it.
thank you. Thank you so much. I love this experience too. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Absolutely Right. How was it for you? Did you learn something new, something interesting? Did you have the left slant in your writing, or the T went ahead and had the temper stroke in it? Now, no matter which stroke is applicable to you, use that information to process your conversation, your life decisions at a deeper level. That is a larger objective of doing this awareness based podcast, any which ways. If you have any questions about graphology or about how you can implement it, how you can learn the technique, you can visit my website aditisurana.com. For all your queries, you can write to us on write, which is WRITE, at aditisurana.com. On our Friday episode, I'll come up with one more journaling question in our grapho journaling style, and you will be able to look at one more area of your life in a different perspective. So make sure that you get back to handwriting, the old school emoting technique to get all your thoughts, all your confusions on the paper. And our Friday short episodes are designed exactly to do that. I'll connect with you on Friday. Happy writing!